You are watching No Filter with Debbie. These are my views and opinions. Welcome to No Filter with Debbie. I'm Debbie Schlussel, and you know what's driving me crazy? What's driving me crazy is what is going on in Minnesota with regard to the 4 police officers charged with the death of George Floyd. These officers, as I have said on the show many, many times, are never going to get a fair trial. Never. First of all, the judge has not ruled that they will get a different venue. If they are tried in Hennepin County, which envelops Minneapolis, where this event happened, they will never get a fair trial. There is not a single juror that is going to acquit any of the 4, not one. Because you know why? They saw the riots. They saw what happened after the riots. They saw how all the rioters went to Derek Chauvin's house. He wasn't there, but they had to have several National Guard, several police guarding his driveway. After they tried to break in, they already spray painted his driveway and his garage. Do you think a juror wants to have that happen to him or her? Do you think a juror wants to enter the witness protection plan? No. Excuse me. So, not a single one of them is going to get a fair trial, and not a single juror is going to do the right thing. Let's hope they will. And I don't know what the right thing is yet. I haven't seen the evidence, but I'll tell you what I have seen. I have seen George Floyd's arrest record. So have you, if you've done any amount of reading on this case, any amount of research trying to look into George Floyd's criminal past. He has quite a criminal past. He's got a long rap sheet. And that rap sheet includes breaking into a woman's home who was pregnant, a pregnant woman, I believe in Texas, which is where George Floyd is originally from, broke into her house with a gun, put a gun to her head, and robbed her. She was in fear for her life. And she could have gone into early labor over this. This was an armed robbery. By the way, he only got something like 5 years for this when he really should have gotten something like at least 14 years for that. If he had gotten those 14 years, he'd probably still be in the clink and he'd still be alive. Not only that, but on the morning in question, I believe that these officers knew about George Floyd's arrest record. Now remember, they were called by the convenience store owner. Why? Because he passed a counterfeit $20 bill. They knew his name. He had frequented the store. Apparently, Officer Chauvin may even know him from before because they both worked at the same bar. I'm not convinced, though, that they knew each other, but they may have. But they would have had to have known his criminal record. Why? Because usually when something like this is called in, the name is called in. Or after they find the person, they call the person's name in. And they are told the arrest record. It's all on the LEAN, which is the Law Enforcement Information Network. Police officers are made privy to this. Why? Because of instances like this. They need to know if there's somebody that is likely to have a gun, as George Floyd did. They need to know if there is somebody that is likely to pull a gun on them, as George Floyd did on this poor pregnant woman whom he robbed. That wasn't the only thing on his criminal record, but that was probably the most serious. He had drug arrests, he had other arrests. I believe he also had other shoplifting arrests. Yes, those are minor, but the drugs he got caught with were serious. He was a known drug addict. All of these things should come into play, but guess what? They won't. These police officers, even though they knew or probably knew George Floyd's arrest record, which was probably the reason or one of several reasons why they behaved the way they did towards George Floyd, that is not going to get into the trial, which I think is outrageous. Now, I am a criminal defense attorney. I have represented criminal defendants. That is unheard of. I think this person's propensity to commit violence and the possibility, no, the probability that these officers knew about it this is primary evidence. This is evidence that should definitely be admitted. But Judge Peter Cahill, who is the judge in this case, he is extremely, extremely biased in decision after decision on the procedure of how this trial is going to go forward, such as giving Derek Chauvin, Officer Chauvin's attorneys, a delay so that they can prepare for this trial. I mean, this is a major undertaking. He won't give them the delay. He said the trial is set to start in March. And not only that, but he will not let them bring in any of the past evidence of George Floyd's behavior, which is outrageous. Usually the law is to err on the side of the defendant. This is very prejudicial against these defendants. Not only that, but this judge is hypocritical. He's got a double standard, and he's totally unfair because why? He said that Officer Chauvin's record of discipline, and we know that there were 18 incidents over something like 19 years. Now, one a year, that sounds high, but any citizen can complain against an officer. He was not kicked off the force as a result of any of these. I'm not saying that that means that none of them were very bad or very egregious and egregious enough to get him kicked off the force, but they might have been, or they might not have been. They probably were not, because he was kept on the force, and it would be a legal liability for the police force to keep him on if these were very serious charges. But regardless, all 18 of those incidents are allowed to be brought in. Why? Why are those more relevant than the behavior, the past criminal behavior of George Floyd, which these officers surely knew at the time that all of the events took place resulting in George Floyd's death? And I say all of the circumstances because we know George Floyd had a heart condition. We know he was a habitual drug user. We know that he may have had COVID at the time. We know he suffered from a heart attack. We know that he had done fentanyl that morning or late that night. We know he was hopped up on all kinds of drugs. We know that originally he was in the car sitting there, the police car, and said, I can't breathe, which he had said before anyone's knee was on his neck or anything of the sort. All of that should be let into the trial as evidence. That is evidence. But also what's evidence is George Floyd's criminal behavior. That needs to come in. Now, what probably should not come in is Officer Chauvin's past behavior, which I just said that the judge allowed to come in. Usually prior bad acts of a defendant are not allowed to be brought in. There are special procedures to bring those in and certain exceptions, but in a case like this, it probably should not be brought in. Usually the judge errs on the side of the defendant and allows the defendant to have the presumption of innocence. When you bring in his prior behavior as a cop, which none of which ever resulted in any legal action of a criminal nature, then you are prejudicing the jury against the defendant. I think all of these things are going to be appealed. I think that this decision is going to be appealed. I know it will be by his attorneys, and I believe it will be overturned. It's totally unfair to these people. They are not going to get a fair trial if you cannot bring in George Floyd's past. Frankly, George Floyd, if you look at all of his character, and a lot of these things cannot be brought up, he was really not a good guy. He had something like 5 to 7 kid wedlock with something like 6 or 7 women, 5 to 7 women. He abandoned his children. I mean, now his daughter's mother, his baby mother for his daughter, she has a new house. Her daughter got Disney stock courtesy of Barbara Streisand. They're going to be better off without George Floyd than they were with him. And when I say with, I put quotation marks because he wasn't with them. They were in Texas. He was in Minneapolis. He left them. He abandoned them. So he did the rest of his children. All right, when we come back, we will go a different route, and we will be discussing Joe Biden and some of his very, very scary appointees with an expert on them, a reporter from a really top-notch publication. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. Joining us now on the show is one of my favorite reporters. This guy, I'm a big fan of his, Adam Credo of the Washington Free Beacon. And the Washington Free Beacon, by the way, is a great publication. I recommend it highly. I read it every day. They have stories you won't find anywhere else on topics you should be interested in and probably are. I know I am. Adam, welcome to No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, you've been doing some outstanding work. You are a credentialed member of the press. You are a longtime journalist for decades, and
Yep.
you have been at the State Department for about a decade, right?
That is true.
All right. So you've been following America's policy toward Iran during the Obama administration, during the Trump administration, and now the newly installed Biden administration. Can you tell us what are some of the changes that you are seeing?
So I was there, if people can even remember this far back anymore, when the Obama administration negotiated the nuclear deal in Vienna. I was there in Vienna twice and Lausanne once when they tried to get this deal put together. And essentially what the Trump administration did when it came in, and its State Department under Mike Pompeo, and to a degree Rex Tillerson, although less so, moved in an opposite direction, got us out of that deal, wound up sanctions on Iran, brought the country essentially to its knees through economic sanctions. What we have now is Biden's State Department under Tony Blinken, who was just confirmed, that is going to seek to unwind this. One of the major things we're looking at is who that Iran envoy is going to be. It was Elliot Abrams in the former administration, a veteran foreign policy hand, worked in multiple administrations, and helped build that portfolio of Iran sanctions. Expect many of those to be wound back in order to entice Iran back to the bargaining table.
Now, let me ask you this. The state of North Dakota, where this show airs, is the second largest producer of oil in the United States. We're second only behind Texas, and if we were a separate country, we would be one of the largest oil producing nations in the world. With Iran back in the picture, with the sanctions being eased, is their oil going to be flowing again? Are we and other countries going to be buying that oil?
Well, look, I wouldn't expect the U.S. just yet to buy that oil. The Biden administration, in exchange for whatever they're looking for in a deal, could certainly waive a lot of the oil sanctions we saw, and there were many during the Trump administration. Iran pretty much resorted to doing this thing where they turn their ships into so-called ghost ships. They turn off the transponders. That's, of course, illegal, but this is how they got their oil to the Japanese, to the Chinese, and other places in and around and through the Persian Gulf. I would expect oil sanctions, a major source of revenue for Iran, to be very much of an ask for the Iranians. And I would expect the Biden administration to at least entertain that. Legally, it could be tough, though, to unwind some of these sanctions just because the rationale for them that Iran is using this money to fund terrorism, it's very hard for the administration to say that, in fact, the opposite is true.
So, if the oil did, we did allow the oil to flow from Iran and other countries from the world were no longer under pressure from us as they were under President Trump not to buy from Iran and not to do business with Iran, that could affect the oil price because there's more oil on the market, and that will hurt North Dakota oil producers and Texas oil producers as well, correct?
Naturally, yeah. I think a lot of people would be against this. Again, look, the Iranians were in such a tough spot that they were selling their oil illegally, but at bottom basement bargain prices. So they weren't getting so much revenue for it. One of the things that they're looking for is to get this legitimized again, and that, of course, will impact the prices on the global stage. So I think you're absolutely right. That's something to look at, although not so many signs yet from the State Department they're moving in that direction. I think more of the designations that they might seek to overturn is a lot on Iran's terrorism enterprise and really loosening the strings for all their meddling in the region.
Well, last week on this show, on the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated, it was also the 40th anniversary of the freeing of the U.S. hostages from Iran. And we had on this show my friend Kevin Hermaning, who was the youngest hostage in Iran. He was a Marine guard at the embassy. And he totally opposed the Iran deal under Obama. He is very worried about what's going to happen now. You and I have discussed this, and you said that President Trump did put some measures into place to try and stop Joe Biden from starting things up anew completely the way they were under Obama. What did he do?
He did. Look, it wasn't just through the 4 years of the administration. Obviously, withdrawing the U.S. from the deal, implementing wide-ranging sanctions, that was covered, and that was all known. But in Middle East, Han has worked for progressive-leaning groups and worked in the Obama White House. But before he was hired in the Obama White House, he was fired by the Obama campaign in 2008 for holding unauthorized talks with the Hamas terror group that has murdered Americans and Israelis. Of course, everybody knows that. He was brought back into the administration in 2014 to work on Middle East issues, and he fell naturally where you would expect him to on that. That is pressuring the Israelis to make security concessions while kind of not putting those same demands on the Palestinian side.
So, didn't he also praise Hezbollah, the Islamic terrorist group that has murdered more Americans than any other group other than Al Qaeda?
He's been very sympathetic in terms of championing diplomacy with these organizations. So what does that mean? That actually means legitimizing them through the U.S. speaking to them in various negotiations. He said that Hamas needs to be part of any negotiations towards a Palestinian state. I think that's very much been rejected by the mainstream, even kind of the mainstream Democratic foreign policy establishment has said that that cannot be the case. On Iran, he has championed diplomacy at every single turn, kind of diminished their terrorism enterprise and focused on instead on what he thinks can be areas of agreement with Iran, bringing them into the community of nations.
Oh, they're such nice guys. Let's bring them into the community of nations. Let's minimize all their terrorism activities. Now, let me ask you this. So, one other person, you just wrote a story about this today, is a guy named Mahir Bitar that the Biden administration is appointing to a national security intelligence position?
That is correct. He is now the Biden administration NSC's top intelligence official. That means he has control and a window into our covert operations and all of the classified intelligence. Also of note with him is that in his youth in college, he was a prominent supporter of the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that seeks to wage economic warfare on Israel and that really widely has been condemned as anti-Semitic in nature. He was a member of the group Students for Justice in Palestine, a campus group that is really most well known for bullying pro-Israel Jewish students on campus. And in my article that published earlier today, for an illustration, an example, we have a picture of him performing a dance in front of a sign that says, "Divest from Israeli apartheid." So I think that tells you how he approaches these issues. I spoke to Michael McCaul, the lead Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He said this is a dangerous pick, and it raises concerns about the intelligence sharing that we'll have with Israel going forward.
How do we know he's not going to share our intelligence, our top secret information with Hamas or other Palestinian factions?
Look, I think that it raises a host of questions that people are considering. I would also say, how is Israel viewing this, right? When they look at this selection, does that give them confidence that the U.S.-Israel intelligence sharing and security relationship is going to move forward the same way it did under Trump? I think there's a question surrounding that.
I agree. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today on No Filter with Debbie. We would love to have you back. Please let us know some of the big stories that you're working on. And everybody go look at Adam's work at WashingtonFreeBeacon.com. Adam Credo, thank you again.
Thank you.
When we come back, we will get more into some of the political correctness against some of the Trump supporters and against American history. San Francisco is looking at some schools, and you won't believe some of the reasons they want to change the names. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So a theme that we have talked about on this show many, many times is whether or not kids should go back to school. As I've noted many times on this show, the teachers and their unions are drama queens. They say, oh my goodness, I'm writing my obituary, I'm writing my will, we're all gonna die. We need to teach from home. We need the kids to homeschool. Or they don't want homeschooling. They hate that. We want the kids to learn online from home. And one of the people that said this was a Chicago union boss who was saying this while she was on vacation in Puerto Rico. These people are hypocrites. They can go back to school. But one of the places that is shielding them and giving in to their union terrorism and their union hostage-taking situation, and they are taking America's children's hostage, let's be honest, is San Francisco. San Francisco can't figure out how to bring kids back to school, but yet they can figure out how to rename 44 schools because those schools have names that are offensive. And when I tell you some of the names that are offensive and why, you're going to just see how nuts they are. We've heard all the nuttiness for this year, for the last year. This is even more. So, excuse me, let's take a look at some of these names. Abraham Lincoln. Well, he's targeted for his treatment of indigenous people, so they have to rename Abraham Lincoln High School to something else. George Washington, he was a slave owner. Vasco Nunez de Balboa. Yes, Balboa. Remember him? You learned about him in American history. Balboa, and he's Hispanic. Shouldn't he be okay? Nope, not kosher either. A Spanish explorer targeted by the board over his colonization and abuses of indigenous people. So Balboa High School, bye-bye, you're gone, you have to go. There are other Hispanics that have also been attacked. There's a person or a mission called Mission Dolores. Now, that's Spanish, Dolores. Well, it's founded by Spanish settlers in their quest to colonize and evangelize the native peoples of California. So Mission High School must go. You can't use the word mission anymore. Bye-bye, mission. James Lowell. While involved in the movement to abolish slavery, so he was an abolitionist. That's still not good enough for them. He was a poet, by the way. The poet's support wavered over the years, so he wasn't enough of an abolitionist. Too white, not an abolitionist. James Lowell. Lowell High School, you're gone. Be gone. James Denman. He was the founder of the first San Francisco school, and he was the first San Francisco superintendent. Well, he's a racist because he somehow denied the Chinese students a public education. James Denman Middle School, be gone. Be gone. Be gone. All right, I can't go into all of these people because there are so many high schools. I mean, remember, there are 44. We would have another show just on this topic. But let's go through some of them. General Philip Sheridan. What's wrong with General Sheridan? There's Fort Sheridan. The Army base used to be in Chicago. My father was based there during Vietnam, during part of it. He was a Union general. So what's wrong with being a Union general? I don't know, but San Francisco will find a reason. They've found a reason, apparently. You can't have Union generals. Didn't the Unions fight off the Confederacy and assure that we would not return to slavery? I guess that's not good enough. There are a ton of these people. James Monroe, we can't have an old white man who was a president. Monroe Elementary, you must go. They don't have anything against President Monroe. They just don't want a white U.S. president. Now, there's a school called Noriega Early Education School. I promise it's not named after Manuel Noriega, the strong man from Latin America. They want to rename that. Why? I don't know. They don't know either. There are so many of these. Let's go into another one. Presidio. The Presidio. This is a very well-known place in San Francisco. There's even the movie The Presidio with the late Sean Connery. Well, it was a military post formerly established by the Spanish. So it must go. Be gone, Presidio. Robert Louis Stevenson. Well, he's a white author and we can't have that. So he must go. There are so many of these. James Garfield, U.S. President, he's white, must go. Francis Scott Key, composer of the Star-Spangled Banner, he's white, must go. Frank McCoppin, he was a San Francisco mayor, he's white, must go. William McKinley, white president, must go. There are so many of these, I don't even have time to go into all of them, and we are at the break. But when we come back, we will talk some more politics. The head of a food company has now been ordered not to talk to the media because of his support for President Trump. That and also a spoiled brat is going to read a poem at the Super Bowl and bore you to death. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on
Howdy, folks. It's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a combo roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So before we get into the next topic, I just want to read you a few more of these names of schools in San Francisco that they must rename because evil white men, evil American politicians, and evil others. This is just ridiculous. Listen to this. They want to get rid of high schools named Roosevelt Middle School, Roosevelt High School, and so on. Why? Because they're named after Theodore, who's our native son in North Dakota, or we claim him, and we have the Teddy Roosevelt Library being built. Well, they said that he was racist against Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and Filipinos during the Spanish-American War. All right, and then they said Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he had the internment of the Japanese. So Roosevelt, you must go. Paul Revere, what did Paul Revere do wrong? Well, he was a patriot in the American Revolution, and we can't have that. Plus, he was white. Paul Revere, you must go. One if by land, two if by sea, you must go, says them. Edward Hyde. I never heard of this guy. He's an English politician and the Earl of Clarendon, or he was. I don't know why we name anything in America after foreigners, but what's wrong with that? I don't think we should have named a school after him, but they don't like him because he's white and he's English, European, evil, must go. Dianne Feinstein, isn't she supposed to be one of theirs? She attacked Brett Kavanaugh. She votes with the Democrats 100% of the time. She's a far-left liberal, and she was the mayor of San Francisco. Well, she must go also. Why? Because they had a flag display of various flags in American history, and one of those flags was the Confederate flag, and it was taken down, and she replaced it. So she must go. William Henry Grattan, or Grattan. I never heard of this guy. He's an Irish author. Why are we naming our schools after Irish people? I don't know. But he must go. Irish, European, evil, white man. Terrible. James Wilson Marshall. He was a sawmill worker at Sutter's Mill. Can't have a sawmill worker. He was white. He must go. Be gone. And then finally, there's Robert Louis Stevenson, the famous author. What's wrong with him? Old white man, he must go. That's San Francisco for you. And as far as I'm concerned, San Francisco must go. This is what we're dealing with here. They want to erase American history completely and replace it with America sucks. That's what they want. You know it, and I know it. And we've already seen it. We saw it all year long when people who've been taught this kind of stuff have basically gone to our streets and destroyed property, destroyed monuments, killed people, burned things down, murdered people. That's what we saw because they've been taught this kind of stuff. It's absurd. All right, now, speaking of more political correctness, Goya Foods. We told you about this a long time ago. I think it was back during the summer. Robert Unanue, who is the CEO of Goya Foods, he was at the White House and he praised the president. And because of that, everybody, well, not everybody, for what I'm going to tell you in a second, but a lot of people were boycotting Goya Foods. But you know what? People on the right, like myself, and people who are mainstream Americans who feel this is un-American, we don't like these kinds of boycotts, we bought Goya Foods. And you know what? They could not keep it stocked. It sold. It had its highest sales ever. You know who led the charge to boycott Goya? AOC. So they made her their employee of the month 1 month. Well, now Robert Unanue has been ordered by the board. He is from the family, by the way, that has controlled this company, that started this company, has controlled it for decades. So the board ordered him that he's no longer allowed to talk publicly without their approval. Why? Because he said the election was unverified. And they say that's false. Now, was the election verified? I don't know. We don't know because, as Rand Paul pointed out the other day in the video we played for you, most of these cases have been dismissed on procedural grounds. They never took a look at a lot of these ballots. And we know that they changed the rules midstream and had this mail-in voting because it's the easiest way to cheat the system. So, yes, do I think that Joe Biden is now the president? Of course. I acknowledge that. But did he get there fairly? No, I don't think so. But we'll never know because we don't have ballots linked to people. We can't go recall ballots that were fraudulent. We can't go back and find the dead people's ballots from the dead people that voted. So unfortunately, we are screwed in this instance. But so is he apparently, because now he can't talk publicly. And that is in stark contrast to all of the companies now that are endorsing Black Lives Matter, that are saying that we're now going to discriminate against white vendors and white customers and white employees because now we're going to make this percentage minorities and this percentage of our products are going to be minority created or owned or whatever. That is what should be silenced because that's un-American and it's unfair. Not what Robert Unanu said. That's petty and ridiculous. And you know what? It's bad for Goya. I understand. I don't think companies should be involved in politics, but they are already. Here you have one single guy on the other side. You got two people. You have him and Mike Lindell, and suddenly they're persona non grata. Now, a person who is unfortunately not persona non grata is this woman that is part of a cult of personality, Amanda Gorman. I told you about her the other day. We played portions of her political lecture disguised as a poem, her far-left lecture against America at the inauguration last week. Everybody is saying how great she is, how brilliant. As I pointed out, her poem, it was not a poem, it was a lecture, was average. You know what? I could go down the street and pick out any high school student and they'd be better than that. It was average at best. It was kind of mediocre. But there's all this hype. Oh, she's so beautiful. She just signed a modeling contract with IMG, the modeling agency. I kid you not. And now they're going to have her read another poem at the Super Bowl. It's going to be the first poem ever read at the Super Bowl. You know what? There's a good reason it's the first. Because do we need a poem at the Super Bowl? Did anybody say, yeah, you know what? This is a great Super Bowl, but you know what's missing? A poem. Said no one ever. So this woman, Amanda Gorman, there is this cult of personality surrounding her, all this false praise. This woman is an empress with no clothing. There's nothing there. She's called our first National Youth Poet Laureate. She was picked for her social justice warrior activism. She's 22 or 23, which is not youth. That's used to be adulthood. And now she's reading a poem at the Super Bowl. Does anybody want to hear a poem at the Super Bowl? Hell no. Does anybody want to hear somebody's political lectures at the Super Bowl? Hell no. We already saw all the kneeling and all this other stuff about Black Lives Matter. That's why we don't watch anymore, and this ain't gonna bring me back. One of my readers had a really funny poem in response to her, but I don't have it in front of me. We'll have to read it to you tomorrow. But if that was the poem read, then maybe I would watch. All right, when we come back, we will talk about what's going on with the impeachment. Now they're trying a new tack. And also, we're being told tens of thousands of voters have left the Republican Party over the riots, but it's actually really not so many. And we'll talk to you about what's going on in North Dakota that troubles me. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. commercial grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink for trusted manufacturers for the chef in all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So now we're being told that, the Capitol riots, and I have condemned the violence. Listen, I condemn all violence, unlike the liberal Democrats who all year long said nothing about the rioting and the looting and the murders of cops and everything else that has happened to this country. They never said a thing. They never condemned it. I've condemned that, and I condemn what happened at the Capitol. That was outrageous. They had nooses, they had flex ties, they were planning to assassinate people. That's horrible. We cannot have that. We are a nation of laws, and we need to be a nation of law and order. But today, there's a news story that's being much touted that, after the Capitol riots, the Republicans lost tens of thousands of voters. Tens of thousands of voters dropped their Republican affiliation after the Capitol riot. You know what their tens of thousands of voters is? It's 30,000 people around the entire country. Now, first of all, a lot of people who voted for President Trump were not registered as Republicans. I'm not registered as a Republican. Where I live, you don't register your party. You just vote. And that's what I do. I'm an independent. I have voted for some Democrats sometimes when we had a liberal Republican or a fraudulent, hypocritical Republican who's not a conservative. You know what? I'd take a true liberal over a fake liberal every time. Or a true liberal over a Republican who pretends to be a Republican but is really a liberal anytime. I want somebody who is the devil I know, not the devil I don't know. But let me just tell you what happened. So it's 30,000 people. If you do the math, divide the 30,000 by the 74 million who voted for the president. It's 4 10,000ths. 4 10,000ths. That's nothing. That is negligible. That is statistically insignificant. But they say tens of thousands, it's 30,000. And let me tell you where they get these numbers. So it's 10,000 Pennsylvania voters, and then there are some in some other states. So out of the 10,000 Pennsylvania voters, about a third of them, 3,476, have registered as Democrats. The remaining 2/3 opted to register with another party or no party affiliation at all. So that really doesn't mean anything. They're just not Republicans. Then, Pennsylvania Democrats, about a third as many of those changed parties, and that's not in the headline. So, 2,093 switched from Democrat to Republican. So this is basically a wash. You've got about 500 more that switched from Republican to Democrat. as did from Democrat to Republican. This is a wash. This is statistically insignificant. And also, more Democrats registered with no party or a minor party. 1,184 left the Democrat Party. So they're not happy with Joe Biden or the Democrats. Does that have to do with the riots? Maybe. Does it have to do with the impeachment? I'll bet it does. Now, in North Carolina, about almost 6,000 North Carolina voters dropped their affiliation with the GOP. Nearly 5,000 Arizona voters are no longer registered Republicans. Colorado, 4,500. Defectors, Maryland, 2,300. That is very, very few. Very few. So don't believe the hype. When you hear tens of thousands of Republicans left, you have to dig deeper. Read the article, look into the figures, do the math. It's not really a big deal. And as I said, not reflected in the headline are people switching parties the other way. Why is that happening? That's what we need to look into, and that's what we need to harvest and multiply. That's what we need to do. So that's the Republican Party. That's the lie about that. Now, Congress sees, we told you about yesterday's vote, 5 of the usual suspects, Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Murkowski, Collins, and Pat Toomey, they were the ones who voted to hold the impeachment trial. Rand Paul introduced a resolution or a bill, and 45 Republicans voted against it. So we know that with 45 voting against it, including Mitch McConnell, they are not going to have those 17 votes. Why? Because these people see the mood has changed. The mood has changed because we've learned more about these riots. We learned they were planned weeks in advance. So President Trump was not the one encouraging them, although, I faulted him for a few things he did. I don't think he was the one who incited this, and I don't think that he is responsible or wanted people to be violent and kill a police officer. You'd have to be an idiot to want that and be a president of the United States, sitting or former. And we've learned that the FBI knew about this. They didn't do anything about it. We've learned the Capitol Hill police chief, the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, who has since resigned, asked the Senate and House Sergeant of Arms to have National Guard there. And he asked the Pentagon. None of them wanted to do it because of bad optics. So we've learned those things. And we've learned that most Republicans still support the president. And these senators are political. They know that too. So President Trump is not going to be removed from office. He's not going to lose his post-presidential benefits. He is going to be acquitted. And he's going to be able to hold up that picture, hold up that headline again with the newspapers. I think we have that picture where he holds up the newspaper that says acquitted. Do we have that picture? Do we have it? All right. So we don't have that. But he is going to hold up that picture again, and maybe we'll hold it up the day that he is acquitted, which is going to come soon. It will be in February. All right? So now, because the senators know this, and they know he's not going to be removed from office, he's already gone. They know he's not going to be losing his benefits. They know he's not going to be barred from ever holding office on the federal level again. Now they want to introduce a censure resolution. Really? Do we really need to waste time on this? Americans are starving. They're out of work. They also are wondering how they're going to feed their families and educate their kids and monitor them while they're learning online. And they're worried about how they're going to do all of that and hold things together. And here we are worrying about President Trump, who's left office. It's just absurd. I told you yesterday, this is like the cadaver synod, the trial of the dead Pope Formosus, who was dug up and put on trial. That's what they are doing. All right, now, in North Dakota, the Governor Burgum, wants to take over managing refugee resettlement. So we have a number of immigrants to this state. Many of them come from Muslim nations, and they're radicals. I would bet you anything that guy who started that fire at the Fargo Mosque, the Fargo Islamic Center I told you about, bet you anything he's an immigrant. Governor Berger wants to take this over as a state function. This is absurd. We should not be involved in this. He says we'll lose federal refugee resettlement money. So what? Let's stop resettling people in this state. What do we get from it? It's not our fault. Lutheran Social Services, which did this, has gone out of business. Don't believe the hype. Remember, things are not always as they seem. See you tomorrow.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfast served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
This is President Leander McDonald, inviting you to pursue your education with us. For 50 years, we have served students from all backgrounds, including over 10,000 American Indian students from more than 75 federally recognized tribes. We are the first tribal college in the nation authorized to offer fully online degree programs. Eligible students may receive the Native American tuition waiver to cover tuition costs. Visit uttc.edu to see if you qualify. Leadership begins here. United Tribes Technical College.
At Beck Communications, we've been planning for your future. Over the past decade, we've placed nearly 200,000 miles of dedicated fiber optics in the ground. Enough fiber optic strands to circle the world 8 times. Taking no shortcuts, we connected every home and business in our service area with dedicated fiber optics. It's your personal, unrestricted, unthrottled connection to the world. Best of all, this dedicated fiber means you do not share your connection. We call this intimate dedicated connection Beck Fiber.
Howdy folks, it's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.